Oh, hello there. If you are here, that means you are wanting to hear a legend from long ago, right? Or maybe a spooky cryptid sighting that's happened recently. Well, if that's the case, we got you covered. My name's Kimmy, and I'm here with my co-host Ryan.
Hey guys, come take a seat around the fire and listen to a loring. What's that? What's a loring? Well, it's a folklore podcast where we tell you the stories and legends of different lore from around the world. Some stories are spooky and some will make you chuckle, but no matter the tale, we'll let you know about the creature, history, characteristics on our comedy podcast.
And for all you creatives out there, we have art prompts for every episode that encourages you to create something inspired from the lore we discuss. Whether it's a drawing, a photograph, a story, or even a song, we encourage you to create something well-alluring.
So when you're ready, you can listen to us wherever podcasts are heard. And remember, that's Alluring. ALOREING. A bi-monthly comedy podcast about folklore and legends from all around the world.
The Oracle Network. Hello and welcome to Reverie True Crime. I'm your host, Paige.
At the Center for Missing and Exploited Children, Director Robert Lowery told us that roughly 800,000 Americans go missing each year.
What percentage of those are African American or of color?
About 60% of the reports that we see here in the U.S. that go in those databases.
More than half.
Well over half. It really breaks a lot of commonly held thought on who are really the missing children in the U.S.
The numbers show that missing Black Americans are disproportionately represented. In 2018, more than 30% of all missing persons were Black Americans, despite making up just 13% of the total U.S. population. But only around a fifth of those cases are followed by the news.
When a person of color goes missing, there's very little coverage and the families don't receive much help. Add to that a person of color who is transgender, and you will rarely hear about them on the news at all. Why is this? We must start asking ourselves why the only time we see full-blown coverage and searches of a missing persons case is when the person is not of color. Usually, white girls and women. That is not to say in the slightest that they don't matter. This question may be one that makes people uncomfortable to ask themselves, or to face that it is a fact. Where is that exact same energy for people of color and the LGBTQ+ community? The family of Sage feels let down, and I empathize as much as I can as a white woman as to why. The investigators and police in this case did not jump on it right away, and it wasn't on the local news for a long time. When a family starts their own search team with not many people, and they're busting their butts more than the authorities, we have to start questioning that. We must demand the same treatment for people of color and the LGBTQ+ community. I also see this in my listenership. When I tell stories of people of any other color or gender who are victims or who have gone missing, those episodes do not get the same amount of listens as others. I notice these things. We talk about this amongst the true crime community all of the time. It's not just my episodes, it's across the board. I am so grateful for the support and love that the episodes about cases such as this one gets, even if it's not as many as others. It shows me that at least not all hope is lost. We have to do better. It's unfortunate that some people out there don't care as much about these human lives as they do others. Please, as humans, who are really not as different from each other as the media and other sources that try to pit us against each other, try to make us feel and believe. Can we come together to do better? Can the authorities please do better? Can thousands or even hundreds of people show up for these families and aid in searches? These families feel hurt and let down by their fellow humans. I'm not trying to put all of the blame on us as citizens because what we see on TV or social media is what we tend to focus on because it's who they pick and choose to highlight. However, if you look at the FBI missing website or other missing persons websites, you'll see there are so many babies, teenagers, adults, and seniors who are missing and who are not blonde-haired and blue-eyed. Again, not at all saying their lives are not important. Never think that's what I mean. What I'm saying is, everyone is equally as important. With all of that being said, let's begin. On December 13th, 1992, Latasha Dennis and Dean Smith gave birth to a baby boy named Deshad LaQuinn Smith, who later was transitioning into who they truly were, a beautiful girl going by the name of Sage Smith. From this point forward, I will be saying her and calling her Sage. Not long after Sage was born, Latasha and Dean parted ways. Dean also got caught with drugs and was hauled off to jail. When he got out of jail, he and Sage did eventually become close. Both of Sage's parents did get married to other people, which provided Sage with a rather big extended family. She had many step-siblings. Her father's mother, Lolita Smith, who went by Cookie, practically raised Sage, and they became so close with each other. Sage's grandmother lived in Garrett Square, Charlottesville, Virginia, where she took care of Sage until they moved when Sage was 12 years old. This was due to an iron fence that was put in place at the apartments, which gave the feel of a prison, and Cookie did not like it one bit. The two moved to Fifeville, and Sage met Shakira Washington. She lived only a few doors down, and they hit it off, becoming best friends. Sage was taken back to her mother around 12 or 13 years old, but it wasn't long after Latasha took Sage in that she was found to be an unfit mother, with the home environment not being stable either. Sage was put into the foster care system. When Sage hit puberty, she started to realize that she felt like a girl trapped in a boy's body, identifying as gay at first, but then eventually she realized she identified as transgender. Sage was embracing every bit of it, and she was comfortable with herself in every way. But of course, there were the typical assholes who would constantly harass and terrorize her and her friends when what Sage identifies as has absolutely nothing to do with anyone else. Sage never went home without someone she knew walking with her, because she was aware of the dangers of being caught by herself. Her family was not surprised that she identified as transgender, because they believed at a young age that Sage was possibly gay, and they were basically waiting on her to come out of her shell enough to tell them herself. Her grandmother Cookie told journalist Emma Eisenberg during an interview for Splinter that she recalled Sage coming out to her. Quote, "And she said, 'Grandma, I'm gay.' And I said, 'You aren't telling me anything I don't already know.'" End quote. Sage's father, Dean, did kind of struggle with accepting his daughter's sexuality, to the point of even telling her that he didn't want to communicate with her anymore, which was hard for Sage to deal with. She was disappointed and hurt. She wasn't the only one that was upset by Dean's reaction. A lot of people in the family were as well. After Dean was reminded by his youngest son that he had told all of his children to be genuinely happy with themselves no matter what, it struck a chord with him. He did get back in touch with Sage, although I'm not quite sure how their relationship was after he got in contact with her. I really hope everything worked out okay with the two of them. Despite being treated terribly by many, she was still charismatic and energetic. She also didn't like to label herself and saw herself more so gender fluid. People that knew Sage said her smile just radiated, and that caused others to smile too. She was very social, and when you met her, you would never forget her. She left a lasting impression on everyone she met in the best way. She had a love for dancing, and she and her friends would have the best time getting dolled up to the nines on the weekends. They would head out to the only queer club in Charlottesville, or the strip club that was by the University of Virginia. While Sage was in high school, she would make YouTube videos of herself dancing and trying to up her dance skills. Sage was into fashion, and she loved impressing people around her by being striking and electrifying. She was such a cool girl that was totally with it, a social butterfly, and seemed so enjoyable to be around. In 2011, Sage graduated high school, being the first person in her family to do so. She quickly embarked on her new journey early the next year. Foster care paid for Sage to get herself an apartment. She had 2 roomies, her best friend Shakira and her other friend Aubrey Carson. They all moved in March of 2012 on Harris Street. Their walls were pink, and they called their apartment the Dollhouse Mansion, where they would often throw the hottest parties around. Sage had a job at a hair salon, reportedly sweeping up hair to make some money while she was attending cosmetology school, because her dream was to become a professional hairdresser. She was also braiding people's hair on the side at her apartment as well. Sage went through a lot of hardships as a child and was trying hard to make ends meet now with college and the apartment. But, like most of us after high school, she started to really spread her wings. She was bright, talented, and exuberant. She knew what she wanted, and she was determined to achieve those goals. With hard work also came hard playing on the weekends for the girls. At times, yes, they would hook up with people, having a fun time. They were super protective of each other and made sure to all check on each other during the night to make sure they were all okay. They had a really good buddy system. They really had each other's backs. As Shakira was remembering one time as she talked to journalist Emma Eisenberg, that a college professor from University of Virginia had invited her to come over one night. The professor left the room and Shakira was by herself, but she heard a little knock on the window. There was Sage in the bushes watching to make sure her friend was okay, and she wanted Shakira to know that she was there and had her back. Spring and summer came and went, and now fall was upon them. On November 19th, 2012, the girls planned a party at their place because it was Shakira's 19th birthday, and there had to be a celebration. There ended up being a disruption of the good time when some female crashed the party wanting to fight one of Sage's friends over a guy. Ladies, let's not fight over guys. It's not worth it. Unfortunately, this fight moved outside and Sage jumped in. She was scrapping with someone she knew named Jamel Smith. Someone called the police, and they were on the scene around 11:20 that night. Jamel told the cops that Sage damaged his car and filed a report. Luckily, no one was taken to jail, and the cops just left. There was a small tiff between Shakira and Sage because Sage was a little upset that Shakira didn't try to defuse the situation or help her in the fight. Shakira ended up getting in touch with some friends of hers that lived in Norfolk, Virginia. She asked them to come get her and take her to the coast for a while, and they did so on the morning of the 20th. That morning, Sage decided to call up her father since it was the anniversary of him getting out of jail, and she commended him for that. I think that was very thoughtful. It's the little things like that people sometimes need to remind them of where they've been, how they don't want to get back into a situation like that. Tell them how well they're doing and how you're proud of them. Her family was celebrating Thanksgiving the next day, and Sage was pumped to travel to Louisa County. She was going to surprise her stepsisters who lived with her mother, Latasha, in her new house that she was also very enthusiastic about seeing. During the day, Latasha tried calling and texting Sage, but she never replied. However, she was pretty busy that day and had a lot on her mind, I'm sure, about her upcoming evening. Around 5 that afternoon, Sage was getting all dressed up for a date. Around 40 minutes later, she went to Aubrey's room, and she said she was leaving and she'd be back later. Sage's stepsister, Kiara Morgan, was sure that she saw Sage that evening at 6:30 on Main Street by the intersection of West Main Street and 4th Street Northwest on her phone while Kiara was going to the bus stop. She thinks that she even heard Sage say, "I'll be there in 5 minutes." Aubrey woke up later that night, around 8 p.m., thinking that Sage should have been home, but the apartment was completely dark and Sage wasn't there. On the 21st, no one could locate Sage. Everyone was ringing her cell phone, but all the calls went straight to voicemail, and no texts were being replied to. Aubrey decided to call Sage's grandmother, Cookie, telling her what was going on. Cookie knew right away that something was wrong, but she told Aubrey maybe not to freak out just yet, give it until 10 that night, and if she had not been seen or heard from, then report her missing. Sage was immediately reported as a missing person the next day since no one had heard a word from her. The Charlottesville Police Department started their investigation into the matter on November 22nd. They combed Main Street, Harris Street, and around the University of Virginia College. There were no signs of Sage anywhere. Sage's father, Dean, let Latasha know that Sage was missing, and she was immediately scared to death. She tried her best not to scare her daughters, Iana and Rashaw Langston, so she kept things on the down low as long as she could. Eventually, the girls found out that Sage was missing because of a Facebook post. Just like most of us, Sage never had her phone turned off, and it was always charged, so it was extremely suspicious that her phone was turned off. It was believed her disappearance was foul play instantly. It was also really close to Thanksgiving, and she would not have stopped talking to her family and friends before a holiday. This was not like her in the slightest. Sage's cell phone records were retrieved by investigators. The family was told it would take a few days to get through all of her phone records, so the family decided to do some things on their own in the meantime. They actually started fiddling with Sage's cell phone account password, and they wound up guessing it. They got into her records themselves. They found a number that was out of state, so Dean took it upon himself to post the number on Facebook to see if anyone knew who it was. A young man named Yami Ortiz got in touch with Sage's father and said it was a man named Erik McFadden. You may be asking yourself, how did Yami know this? Well, he told Dean that they had texted and emailed each other a few times in the past, but it's not clear how they met. However, Yami said Sage and Erik had been dating, and one day, out of nowhere, Erik messaged Yami and said to delete all of his contact information, which he didn't think anything about until he saw Dean's post. According to Erik's Facebook, he was born on March 1st, 1991, and graduated from Joppatown High School in Harford County, Maryland. At the time, he was attending the Lincoln University of Pennsylvania. So Sage had casual encounter ads listed on Craigslist, and that is believed to be how the two likely met each other. Erik McFadden was the last person Sage had any contact with. They'd actually been in communication for weeks, talking on the phone and texting. They may have met up a few times for sex. Sage and Erik had planned to meet by the Amtrak station on the night of the 20th. Erik was in a relationship at the time with Esther Aveni, and allegedly he would give Sage money to essentially keep her mouth shut about their relationship so his girlfriend would not find out. Plus, he was on the down low. Yami gave Sage's father a picture of Erik, and Dean immediately posted it to Facebook, but he didn't give any of the information to the police in fear that they would stop him from investigating on his own. It's reported that Yami got in contact with Erik on the 23rd of November and tipped him off about the investigation. Some police officers got together and did a more in-depth search of dumpsters, empty lots, trash cans, fields, parking lots, and even stopped by a lot of stores to check their surveillance tapes. However, there was no sign of Sage on any of the surveillance footage. On day 4 that Sage had been missing, the police were investigating Harris Street and around the university. That was the day they found out about the suspected link between Sage and Erik McFadden. In a turn of events, Esther, Erik's girlfriend, called the police on November 24th and reported that her boyfriend, Erik, might have been missing. She wasn't in town and she couldn't get in touch with him, and she asked police to do a welfare check at their residence. The police went to their apartment and no one was inside. While looking around the apartment, there wasn't much found except a CVS receipt from November 22nd. Erik went missing around the same time Sage did. He hadn't shown up for work in a few days, and that's when the police went public about the suspected connection between Erik McFadden, Sage Smith, and how they went missing around the same time. There were missing persons flyers placed on telephone poles, store counters, and community bulletin boards. Investigators eventually saw the footage at CVS of Erik, and they believe after Yami told Erik about what was going on and Dean's Facebook post that he fled out of town. After getting the phone records, this is the timeline of the events on the 20th. 5:17 p.m. Sage sent a text asking Erik when he was leaving. 5:20. Erik responded saying he had already left and was at the Hampton Inn. From 5:17 to 5:40, the pair texted on and off. At 5:40 p.m., Sage left her apartment and made her way to downtown Charlottesville. 6:08 p.m., Erik texted Sage asking where she was. 6:12, Erik again inquired about Sage's whereabouts. From 6:18 to 6:37, Erik texted Sage numerous times, but she was on a call with a friend, and nobody is sure if she saw the messages from Erik. At 6:27, Erik was upset and texted Sage again, claiming that she had stood him up. At 6:35 is when Kiera saw Sage walking down 4th Street Northwest near the 400 block of West Main Street. At 6:40, Sage walked westbound on West Main Street. Erik's girlfriend Esther told the police on the 25th that she started receiving phone calls and emails from Erik. He said he was in Washington, D.C. and was in need of money. The police wanted to talk to him about Sage. Erik was made aware of this by Esther, and she gave the police all of his contact information. Erik took it upon himself to call the police on November 27th. He said he was in New York now, and he made it clear that why he was there had nothing to do with Sage being missing, and talked a little about her and their relationship. Erik claimed that he and Sage never met up, and he had no idea where she was. Oddly enough, Erik quit corresponding with the police, even hanging up on them once, before they could even get an interview with him in person. On the 29th of November, Erik seemed to have a change in his tune about talking to the police. Esther got in touch with the police and said Erik was on his way back to Charlottesville by bus and wanted the police to pick him up. By the next day, Erik did not want to do that and changed his mind. This was absolutely suspicious to the family, because if he was innocent, why would he not just come meet with the police? This made him look bad, like he was definitely involved with whatever happened to Sage. On the 8th day of Sage's disappearance, investigators were back at it, searching the woods along West Main Street. Then they widened the search to include areas around Erik's apartment. The first press conference the police and investigators held was on the 28th. They made it clear that this was not a criminal investigation. They did not have any proof that anything illegal had happened yet. On the 30th, the police went and figured out when the dumpster behind Erik's place was last taken out and where exactly they unloaded it. It had been taken to a landfill that was outside of Richmond, about 60 miles away. Esther received an email from her boyfriend saying Sage had been blackmailing him for a while to keep their relationship under wraps, or she'd tell Esther everything. Erik changed his story and said he did meet with Sage that evening of the 20th, but he swore he had no idea where she was, but she had, quote, a lot of enemies. He even said a group of people even came up to them, but he took off before anything went down. With his story changing, police did not know if he was being honest or not. If this did happen, Erik was obviously intimidated by whoever this group of people were that came up to them. At the end of the email, he made an apology to Esther for hurting her and that he was going to be headed towards the Midwest. Erik was last heard from, if it was him, in 2013. He had sent Esther in May of 2013 an email that wasn't able to be traced at all. His family has not heard a word from him since 2012. There were warrants to search his computer, emails, social media, and bank accounts, and all of that led to a dead end. Erik McFadden was 21 years old when he was last seen on November 23, 2012 in Charlottesville, Virginia. He is around 6 feet tall, 180 to 190 pounds, with black hair and brown eyes. This is a pretty vague description, so please check my social media account for pictures of Erik. Even though he seemed to just vanish, he was deemed a suspect in Sage's disappearance. On December 3rd, Sage's family made a public statement. They were upset that her case was not getting the attention it needed and deserved. The same day, the family made a public statement that Aubrey was caught using Sage's food stamp card. Aubrey told the police that they often shared each other's cards for food, but since the police could not confirm her alibi for the night that Sage went missing, Aubrey started to look suspicious in the authorities' eyes. Sage was considered a missing person, but they changed her case to a possible homicide and started investigating. Local investigators got in touch with the FBI and teamed up for the search. In December, they looked all around Main Street again, Erik's apartment, railroad tracks close by, and they also had officers from the Virginia Department of Emergency Association with them as well as cadaver dogs. One of the dogs seemed to hit on Sage's smell, but that didn't pan out. They examined a pond with a dive team. They went to the landfill that Erik's dumpster was unloaded at, plus they had help from forensic and hazmat teams, canines, and a retired special agent who had immense experience of landfill searches. Out of all of these major extensive searches, there was no sign of Sage anywhere. By the end of 2012, an anonymous person put up $10,000 of reward money, wishing that someone would be enticed to come forward with information. In 2013, there was a new twist in the case that, if true, might have concluded that Erik actually had nothing to do with Sage's disappearance. Monica Williams told police that she was sure she saw Sage around 7 p.m. the night of her disappearance. She said Sage was by herself at the Wild Wings Cafe on Main Street. She was by herself, looking as if she was waiting on someone at the bar. This eyewitness account prompted the police to go back over the timeline again. Sage may have indeed met up with Erik, like he said they did, before her stepsister saw her and even before Monica did, which would make Erik innocent in any kind of foul play. The cafe did not have any cameras, and the manager was not able to positively say that Sage was even there. Another dead end and more questions than answers. This cafe was right beside the Amtrak, where they were supposed to meet. There were still no signs of Erik, and no one could trace his whereabouts. In May of 2013, investigators got in touch with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They helped to get the word out about Sage, and since investigators had Sage's dental records, they uploaded them to a national registry in case her remains are located. I hate to say remains or body, but unfortunately, I do believe that's what will eventually be found, and it hurts to even think it or say it. However, if her body is found, at least she can be brought home to her family and have a proper burial. The family can somehow start the healing process and do what they need to do to come to terms with it. Without a body, to a lot of families and friends, it just feels like she's out there, but probably not coming back home. When my best friend in the world died, I didn't get to say goodbye. and he was cremated. It's not the same as this situation, but I've always felt like he just disappeared somewhere. Like he went on a vacation or moved out of the country, and I'll just never see him again, even though I know he's passed away. Unless you have a body, it doesn't seem real. At least that's my personal experience. Sage's mother, Latasha, even said, quote, "This is a loss that is different from other losses because there's no closure. It's like you can't finish grieving. It's a continuance of an untied feeling that hits me." End quote. Sage's stepsister, Iana, said, quote, "With every milestone I reach, I wish he was able to be there, getting my license, graduation, scholarship ceremonies, or college move-in day, but he is not." End quote. Also, yes, Iana did say he. Latasha told the Huffington Post, quote, "His gay community says she, but his family still says he. It does not bother him." End quote. As long as it doesn't bother Sage, I think that's all that matters. There hasn't been much movement in the case since. There have been reported sightings, but as far as the ones that they were able to check on to see if it was Sage, of course, none of them were. Erik was no longer even considered a suspect. The investigators concluded that since he didn't own or drive a car, his digital footprint did not add up as far as having time to do anything harmful to Sage, plus the area that he lived in was a pretty crowded one, and the investigators believed someone would have noticed if something was going on that was unusual. Now, Aubrey, Sage's roommate and so-called friend, started to act weird according to Shakira in 2016. There was a possible sighting of Sage that the police went to check up on, but it just so happened to be Sage's best friend, Shakira. She told them in an interview that Aubrey was not telling everything she knew about Sage's disappearance. She could just tell. Plus, she felt really uneasy that Aubrey was using a lot of Sage's personal belongings and her food stamp card. The police went to Sage's stepsister, Kiera, to interview her again. This only made Aubrey look worse. Kiera told the police that Aubrey and Sage were in competition with each other all the time, and that she could tell Aubrey was very envious of Sage. The police confronted Aubrey about everything they had been told, but she told them it was not like that. She wouldn't harm Sage, and it was a misunderstanding. With time, her story began to fall apart. Initially, Aubrey said that she only met Erik once, but the police found out that Aubrey saw Erik more than once, and that she, Sage, and Erik had met up the Saturday before Sage went missing. Aubrey's behavior was a red flag too. She definitely acted like she knew something she was not revealing, but she maintained that she did not know anything more than what she had told. Police never had any solid evidence to prove otherwise. In March of 2017, police were again saying Erik was a person of interest, not as a suspect this time, but a witness. A few months earlier, in December of 2016, the police announced Sage's case was not a missing person investigation, but now it was a homicide investigation. A forensic team and investigators examined Sage's apartment again in May of 2018. They spent days there, but it was never public knowledge if they did or didn't find anything that was of significance. Charlottesville Police Department Detective Regine Wright Settle said, quote, Sometimes, even when you go back after many years, you can still find traces of DNA evidence. Blood that was wiped away can still be found after several years." End quote. In June of 2019, another twist in the case came to light. Erik may not be alive. At least, that is what is suspected. His mother did not even know that he was missing until 2014, and she thought that his father called to report it. The locations that the investigators say Erik or his remains may be in are Baltimore, Maryland, Joppatown, Maryland, Atlanta, Georgia, Lake City, South Carolina, New York City, New York, and Rochester, New York. Also, any cities that surrounded these could be possible too, of course. They also say he could have traveled further south. I say all of this and think Erik or his remains could literally be anywhere at this point. Something that has not been mentioned much is the fight that Sage got into with that Jamel Smith guy at the party on the 19th. And Jamel did not have an alibi for the night of the 20th. Reportedly, he was upset about the fight and the fact that things ended up how they did. Well, the police can't interview Jamel now because nobody knows where he is. There is a $20,000 reward that will go to anyone who gives information that will lead to where Sage is. So if you know where Sage's body is or know who is involved in her disappearance that will lead to an arrest, you'll get that reward money. Sage Smith is a black transgender female, between 5'8" and 5'11", 130 pounds, black hair, and brown eyes. Sometimes she would wear her hair in braids. She has her ears and eyebrows pierced. Again, this is quite a vague description, so please check my social media accounts for her pictures. I did read that Sage's mother, Latasha, had some health issues. So yes, I did check Facebook after following and liking the Find Sage Smith page. She's still posting, and a few months ago, she posted about Iana, Sage's stepsister, graduating college as a Bachelor of Science in Nursing. Iana, if you ever hear this, I just want to say congratulations. To this day, Sage's case remains unsolved. If anyone out there can help in any way, we're all begging that you please do, because investigators and police are heavily relying on the public. Any information can be called in to the Charlottesville Police Department at 434-970-3280 or call the We Help the Missing tip line at 866-660-4025. My thoughts and prayers are with Sage's family and friends. I hope sooner than later you all get the closure that you need. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you will share these episodes about the missing with others, or at least share pictures and information of the missing with anyone you know. I'm really hoping to bring much more awareness to missing people as much as I can. I may not be able to do it every single week as I'm trying to, but I will definitely do it each chance I get. Before I go, I do want to shout out and thank my Patreon members at patreon.com/reverie-true-crime. Thank you so much, Erica, Dooley, Corey, Justin, Angel, TZ, Kimberly, Jade, Marianne, Jamie, Sapper, Iris, Jimmy, Joe, Shannon, Matt, Chelsea, Jigglypuff, Trevor, Kara, Melissa, Lorraine, and Denise. Thank you for supporting the show over on patreon.com/reverie-true-crime. I love you all, and until next time, please stay safe and take care.